This episode is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. It's a special thing to be a member of Navy Federal because they are a member-owned, not-for-profit credit union that invests in its members with amazing rates and low fees. That's why members could earn and save more every year. Plus, they serve all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. So if you're interested in becoming a member, learn more at NavyFederal.org. At Navy Federal Credit Union, our members are the mission. Insured by NCUA.
Land.com can help you find that little patch of ground to call your own and do all the hunting, fishing, and hanging out with the family you want. Just know that getting your own piece of land is something that can generate memories for generations, but also has the ability to generate income in both the near and long term. Like if you just want to start a rental business / family compound. Go to Land.com and check out the hundreds of thousands of rural listings from all across America. Enough dreaming about it. Land.com is a place to find and invest in your open space.
Episode 171, should you focus on paying down your debt right now?
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And today we are talking about debt. We haven't had a debt-focused episode in a little while. And there's a big question going around. How hard should you be focusing on debt? And I see kind of the same ones, like how hard should you be focusing on like storing up cash right now too. So I think we'll touch on that one a little bit as well, but specifically on debt.
Mm-hmm. And it is straightforward. I mean, spoiler alert, we love advocating for paying off debt. We think it brings a ton of freedom. But there are some things to consider. It's not incredibly black and white. So we want to take a look at that today.
Yeah.
But first, our sponsors.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Why, you ask? Because I need you to know that not all needs are created equal. While some needs are more important than others, pursuing any need that improves your life is not bad. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the triangle for your basic psychological and self-fulfillment needs.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's our most educated sponsor yet.
I really felt pursued by them yesterday in my head. And I was like, well, okay, how do we make this fit? And I thought it was appropriate. I thought it would fit because we are talking about like the need to pay off debt. Sometimes you just feel a need to be debt-free, regardless of what the math says on some things. And I say that because that's where we were. Granted, we didn't know a lot about other financial things when we were paying off debt. But regardless of if maybe we could have made a little more in the stock market or bought a house earlier or whatever, getting out of debt was a life-improving thing that we did. So if you're doing something that improves your life, you're not doing it wrong. You're not living life wrong just because you're not living in accordance with what somebody else thinks you should. And vice versa. If you are maybe focusing a little more on investing than paying off debt, you're not doing life wrong if you're improving. So that's the mindset I want us to take in today's episode.
Good word, Jen. Yes, once we have food, shelter, and water, some of how we approach our other needs and wants are going to be different. And there's freedom for that, as long as we're being intentional with it and thoughtful about what's going to be best for you.
Absolutely. So a little current events for us in this. We don't typically talk about current events because we want these episodes to be pretty evergreen. But right now, the federal student loan payment pause is slated to end September 1st. That could be extended through the end of 2021. It could even be extended to March of 2022. So we don't know when federal student loan payments are coming back, but we can guarantee with certainty that they are coming back.
They will not stay asleep forever.
They will
Bears
be coming.
do not hibernate forever.
That is so wise, Jill. That is so wise. And we are also unsure about student loan forgiveness. There are different amounts everywhere from 0 to 50,000. I would say do not absolutely count on $50,000 of loan forgiveness. Like, don't do it. But like maybe you want to account for the possibility of maybe $10,000 in loan forgiveness. Maybe that's something you want to do. That's not wrong to do, but it's also, you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait for the government to become debt-free. Even if they do end up forgiving loans, you will miss nothing by paying off your debt and becoming debt-free earlier. So, with all of the uncertainty, let's just talk about some things that we do know that will kind of be standard. And something else new that we're doing is instead of doing like a top, well, I guess this was when I searched, this was at the top of Google, but mostly because it's newsworthy. And it's from Go Banking Rates, but it was on Yahoo Finance. And it says, Mark Cuban says the best investment is paying off your debt. Is he right? Jill, what did you think when you saw this article?
First, I thought Shark Tank because of Mark Cuban.
I have to say Barbara Corcoran is my favorite shark, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I like Rob. I'm blanking on his last name. It's a complicated one, but he's kind. He's so kind. Anyhow, I think it's a helpful one because there is this argument and perspective out there. Why would I focus my energies on paying down debt when I could put that money into the stock market? I could invest it and get potentially a higher rate of return. Of course, we'll talk about that because it does depend on the interest rates. So it's not necessarily the way my mind thinks. I am definitely more of a what's right in front of me, pay off debt, save money. But for those who are more investment minded, this is a really helpful look at why should I consider paying down debt with that other argument of what's the cost benefit analysis of if I were to put that money into an investment. So one of the first things that they mention with this is that debt is like investing, but in reverse. The same principles are going to apply. Paying down debt as fast as possible is going to provide the most value in the long run. Again, that has to do with interest rates. If your debt has any type of interest rate, right? The quicker you can pay it off, the less money you're going to be paying towards interest and then freeing that up to be able to do what you want with it. Similar to investing money will give you a return, an interest return.
Yeah. I mean, we know this. That's why we believe that we have to pay off our debt. I think nobody is like really happy. Most people are not just happy with just having debt sit around. So yeah, I think it's important to look at the interest rate. That's why we say you especially have to get high interest debt out of your life because you're essentially kind of losing 16% in interest. That's the average credit card interest rate right now. Versus if you paid it off, you have an immediate 16% gain. It's not compound interest like it is in investing, but we always say that past returns are no indicator of future gains. And so you just don't know what the market's going to be like. Long term, it trends upward, but sometimes you need those short-term gains. And there's no better short-term gain than getting rid of like 16% credit card interest. The way it gets tricky is when your interest rates are closer to 3 or 4%. Like, then that's lower than the stock market. And what do you do?
And of course, we're talking about if you actually do invest that money. So I just want to say this caveat here that I think sometimes people will utilize this as a reason for not going hard at paying down debt to say, well, because I can make more money in investing it than I can off of tying up my money paying down debt. And that's all that can only be true if you are actually investing. I think sometimes people will stop there with that train of thought and they won't actually invest their money. So that also needs to be stated. You actually have to do something with it in order to actually like see that idea play out. But yes, to focus on interest rates, taking a look at what are the interest rates on your debt. This is usually expressed in APR. So debt with a high APR is almost always going to be better to pay down before you focus on any other financial priorities, investing, etc. That's the hierarchy of needs, right? Like focus on the big things first.
Yeah. So on the same topic of interest, let's talk about compounding and simple interest. So that's another point that the article makes, is that look at the type of interest your loan has. So if it's something like a credit card, yeah, that interest does compound. So you're going to pay interest on interest in the future. So that's another reason. Those high interest rates and compounding interest are reasons to really focus on getting that type of debt out of your life as quickly as possible. And interest like a mortgage. So that does not compound on itself. It's calculated at the onset, and you can, yes, save money by paying it off early, but that doesn't mean it increases if you pay it off more slowly, if that makes sense. So yeah, and student loans, you can also pay interest on interest, and which is why student loans, blow up. Obviously not as their interest rates are lower, so it's not as fast as a credit card, but the amounts are higher, so it feels like the same. And so that's often one of the things you overlook, is you just look at the interest rate of a student loan and you don't think as much about the compounding. But it really does give you, if you're looking at just the amount of interest you're paying every month, like that could be very reasonable if you had a lower credit card balance with a higher interest rate versus a higher student loan balance with a lower interest rate, And I don't know what the exact numbers are to get there, but if you're looking at amounts, then those could be comparable. And so something in marketing, like marketers will use, is we tend to gravitate towards sales with a higher percentage off, versus if something is maybe $20 off or $40 off, we don't gravitate towards those as much, even if the percentage may be more. So we like to save in percentages, studies have shown, versus amounts. And so that's why you very, very rarely ever see a sale for, this amount off. Sales are always in percentages. And we kind of think the same way about our debt. When our debt interest is lower, we focus on the higher interests instead of the actual dollar amount in interest that our separate debts are accruing for us monthly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just even from a marketing perspective, the way they play their mind games.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of a twist with this article, because it wasn't actually what Mark Cuban said, like the best investment. He was referring to
said that first.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's a little clickbaity.
Yeah, it was clickbaity, and we clicked on it because Mark Cuban. But he was answering the question of what's the safest investment. So this links to knowing your risk tolerance. So yes, investors, people in business and even working with large amounts of money, may take calculated risks in the hopes that their investment returns will outpace the cost of borrowing. But when it comes to personal finance, we generally want to take the safer route. And so the answer does remain the same, that the safest investment, if we're looking at risk tolerance, is to err on the side of caution, which would say pay down debt first before you look into kind of straddling that line of debt payoff and investing.
Yeah, I always say that focusing on one thing at a time is the most effective way to do anything. And yeah, you can definitely do two at the same time, but one's always going to get your focus anyway. So you might as well just prioritize it intentionally versus just letting whatever happens happen. So yeah, definitely stop straddling the line of anything and just picking something is a smart decision. I also, on this one, like that he said, don't forget taxes. And so I think sometimes in Florida, we forget that other people pay a lot more taxes than we do. Mm-hmm. And so while some interest can be deducted from taxes, if you really need to bring down your tax liability for a year, you're going to find a lot more tax relief in contributions to a 401k or a traditional IRA than you would by putting extra money towards paying off debt. So this is definitely a niche reason to maybe prioritize investing over paying off debt. But it's something to realize, I think, for those of us who kind of just focused on paying off debt over investing, while we did that. Sometimes we may not realize why other people might not do that or why it might not be the best decision for somebody else. And knowing that sometimes these things are more complicated for people in certain states or cities. Some cities, you have a city tax, a state tax, and you're paying federal tax.
That's where I came from.
Yeah.
PA, gouge you everywhere.
So sometimes in certain areas, it can be smarter to focus on investing if those higher interest compounding interest, loans or cards are out of your life.
Yeah. We love to put hard and fast rules on it. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't. A lot of people do and then yell at others about it. But yes, I love your point there, Jen, to say, look, there's more to consider here, and what's best for me is not always going to be best for other people. Like, there are some general tenets that we can be aiming at, but we cannot assume that my decision in finances needs to be everybody else's decision.
Yeah. I mean, and being educated can also help you in your argument why you've chosen what you have chosen. So, like, for me, I have federal tax, and that's it. And it's, it's not that high. So it was totally fine for me to forego the tax, benefits of a 401k when I was paying off debt. And if somebody else had told me, no, you should be lowering your taxes, I could have said, well, this is my tax liability and yada, yada. You sound really smart talking about tax liability.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I just moved to Florida. Where they don't have a lot of taxes? Florida.
Yes. Blessings. Anything else on this one for you, Jill?
That's it. Thanks, Mark Cuban. Yahoo Finance.
The safest investment. And he is right on that. That is a guaranteed return, even if it's not the highest. But honestly, like, we're out of the bull market that we were in for, 9 years or something, is the longest bull market in history. And technically, I guess we're in a bull market again, but it doesn't really count to me. And I know we're going to get a 1-star review from something I've already said on this episode, so I'm sorry in advance. But we're in a really good time that you can really do whatever you want on this subject. Focus on paying off debt, focus on investing. And as long as you're focusing on something, that's going to be good for you. There's nothing economically where someone's like, oh, we're, our economy's growing so fast, it's so strong, you would be dumb not to invest. Nobody's going to say that. So you really have the freedom right now to do what makes you feel good. And this is a really strong time to do that. You have a really strong argument for doing either one.
Freedom. How appropriate after we celebrated the 4th of July.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So, buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So, how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing. And of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic. oracle.com/strategic.
We're an Instacart family.
Oh my goodness, we saved so much time with same-day grocery delivery.
So we joined Instacart Plus.
And now we're saving more money.
We get unlimited free delivery on orders over $35,
5% credit back on pickup,
and a family account to shop together.
Did you know members save $460 a year when they order at least once a week?
I do now. See how much you'll save. Visit instacartplus.com for 2 weeks free. Average savings exclude membership fee. Individual savings may vary. Credit back excludes alcohol. Paid membership auto renews. Additional terms apply.
Yes. All right. So our next article is going to be specifically for student loans, and it's from Credible. And it says, before paying off your student loans early, read this. And it is just 5 questions or signs that paying off your student loan early makes sense or doesn't. What did you think of these, Jill?
Great. They're short, sweet, to the point. I think so many people can relate to this. Many, many, many have student loans. It's not just those in their early 20s, right? Student loans are following us into our 30s and 40s. So this is a helpful one to kind of weigh out. Again, it's not just a cut and dry answer. There are some situations where we might want to consider, let's get these ducks in a row before we go hard at this other thing. Mm-hmm. And so These are some of the things that they're telling us to focus on.
Yeah. And while the first article was kind of debating, like, should you mathematically prioritize paying off debt early, or this one's like, these are hard and fast, like yes or no. So these are definitely, and I think we agreed with all of these. So yeah, the first question you should ask yourself is, do you have an emergency fund? If yes, then paying off student loans early is a good idea. So that's the first off the bat. I think the biggest question is like, what size should your emergency fund be? And how long should you wait before you start paying off your loans? Somebody asked me the other day on Instagram, they're like, should I save a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, even if it's going to take me a year before I can start paying off debt? And there were a few questions that I had for her. Well, the first was a suggestion to stop thinking about your emergency fund in terms of months. The reason we say 3 to 6 months, and the article says it right here, is typically you want to have 3 to 6 months. The reason we say that is for if your industry is volatile, if you could be laid off, if you could find yourself without employment abruptly. And nobody, I guess, can see a layoff happening. So that's why we say 3 to 6 months of expenses, because that's about the time it would take you to find a new job. But in reality, if you can't save that very quickly, then think about it in terms of actual emergencies. So look at your last year. How many quote unquote emergencies have you had? What have they cost you? Look around you. Is there anything, any car repairs you're going to need? Any home repairs? Anything around you that might result in an emergency in the next year or 6 months? And so kind of taking those emergency costs into consideration and thinking, has anybody ever has been able to help me with my emergencies? Do I have a strong familial support system? Stuff like that. So take these things into consideration and create an emergency fund based on that. So that's if your income is really low, because you shouldn't have to wait a year. You shouldn't have to save an emergency fund for a year before you start paying off debt. I mean, I can't say what a hard and fast number is, but definitely a year seems like a long time to save an emergency fund before you start paying off debt.
Yeah. And that's the before you start paying off debt. Like,
Right.
you can keep working on building an emergency fund while you're also making payments to debt. But yeah, if you're kind of talking like, I want to have this first and then look at that, kind of look at what's a reasonable amount before you can get to a larger amount that you feel more comfortable with. And again, the reason for this is so that we don't go into further debt. That's the reason for an emergency fund ultimately, is that we are able to cash flow whatever the emergency is and not get ourselves deeper into the pit of owing some other entity. So cushioning yourself for that is a good idea before you start paying down your student loans early.
And I think the one caveat I gave her, the last question was like, do you feel comfortable with less than 3 to 6 months of expenses in your emergency fund? And if the answer is no, like I only feel I have this goal number and I will only feel safe if I have this number, then it's a moot point. Then you save till you get to that number so you can feel safe. But don't lie to yourself and think like, if this number is enough, then you'll start to think of something else you need and the number just keeps going up and up and up. If you have a number that feels good and feels safe and you will save to it. It's a moot point. But if you feel like you could feel safe with less than 3 to 6 months, it's just what you've been told you need to have, then maybe you don't need 3 to 6 months right now. You can save the amount that'll keep you out of dipping into your credit cards and stuff for emergencies and just continue to like bit by bit build that up while you're paying off debt.
The next question to ask yourself is, do you have a lot of credit card debt? So again, this is in comparison to paying down student loan debts. If you have a lot of credit card debt, then no, you should focus on the credit card debt before the student loan debt, because on average, the credit card interest rate is about 16.97% versus your plus loans, your federally funded loans that are about between like 4.5 to 7%. So credit card loans are gouging you far more with interest rates. And so the Frugal Friends hierarchy of debt payoff says to focus on credit card debt first.
Yeah, even if your student loans are private, those are still usually 9 to 13. So definitely focus on the credit cards first and focus on the habits that got you into credit card debt or the life situations that got you into credit card debt, and kind of look at the root causes and see how can I get stable there and put my focus there before I start putting my focus on finances. So we want to get stable. We want to get strong habits. We want to get healthy there so that we can actually sustain paying off debt. Because if you're just looking at your cards and be like, okay, I'm going to pay off my debt now, that's very difficult to sustain. But we want to look at the circumstances that got us there first and get healthy there, and then try to pay off our debt. So number 3, if your student loans have high interest rates, yes, paying off your student loans early is a good idea. So yeah, what I just said, private student loans are obviously higher. Federal student loans can have rates as high as 8.5%. So it's definitely, if you have graduate loans or any private, it definitely makes sense to pay those off early, for sure.
The next question, 4th question on here is, do you contribute to your retirement and get the max employer match? So assuming that you're working in a place that offers a 401k and maybe even offers a match, you want to focus on doing that as well or beforehand before you focus on paying off your debt early. So the answer is, if you're not doing that, then no, paying off your student loans early is not a good idea. And the argument here is, while it might seem when we are in the place of insurmountable student loan debt, retirement is not something that we're thinking about, but the amount of time that we can be putting money towards retirement and investing, that is going to do far better for us in the future. The amount of time that we can be investing, not always the amount that we're investing. So time is on our side if you're younger. And so you do want to focus on that. Look at contributing to the 401k, getting the match, maxing out your Roth IRAs. That's a big, important component to be focusing on even while you have debt.
Yeah. And I would say definitely the max employer match is the key word here, because that's not a lot of money. And honestly, it just takes emailing HR and being like, hey, can you send me the link to sign up for the 401k if you weren't already auto-enrolled, or then just getting the link to sign in and just saying, yes, I want to get the max match, which is typically about 3%. Because if you don't do that, you're essentially telling your employer you're turning down a 3% raise is what it is.
Yeah.
So you are entitled to that money. And so don't tell your employer that you don't want more money from them, because I'm sure nobody can say that.
Yeah, you can treat it like it's another bill. Yes, it'll get taken out of your paychecks, but you will thank yourself in the long run. And again, this is another piece that doesn't have to take you away from paying down debt, but don't pay down debt instead of doing these very minimal retirement investment things.
Yeah, you can definitely invest beyond the match, but if you don't want to focus on investing while you pay off debt, that's totally fine, but still sign up, get the employer match. Your employer owes it to you, and that's money that will just grow and grow, and typically at a 7% long-term return will double around every 10 years. And so it's money that is just there for you for the taking. So don't turn it down.
Yeah, it's a benefit.
Yeah.
That's the point.
And so the last one is 5. Are you already contributing to other life goals? And if the answer is yes, then yeah, you might as well pay off your student loans early. So they define the life goals as saving for a house, investing, and paying off higher interest debt. So if you've got 1 through 4 kind of figured out, then yeah, it's a good idea to pay off your student loans. Some people will gladly have their student loans around. And I think it can get really overwhelming if you are looking for diverse voices in personal finance, because everyone will have a different opinion. And that's great. You can find somebody who speaks to you in the language you feel good about, about debt or investing or real estate or whatever feels good to you. You can find somebody who speaks wisely to that. It can also be really overwhelming if you're not sure what camp you're in yet. Just know that if you are looking to improve your life and your finances, in whatever way you do that, as long as you are focusing on something, you're going the right way. But I think there's these really important tenets that we have is like pay off the high interest debts, credit cards, and get the 401k match, have the emergency fund. And if you have the basics on your hierarchy of financial needs, everything else is kind of semantics.
Yeah. Again, decide for yourself. But if you are in the camp of saying, yeah, there might be some other things to consider, then here it is. This is the podcast episode for you. But if you're in a place where you're just saying, I don't really need to know all of the other arguments, I just don't like this burden, and I just want to get all my debt gone, great, go for it.
Yeah. You do you.
You know what else is us doing us?
You really, I didn't know where you were going to go with it. I'm glad you went there, but I'm happy to head somewhere else.
The bill of the week.
It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck Bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the Bill of the Week.
Hi, guys. This is Tasha in sunny St. Petersburg, Florida. What's up, neighbors? And I am calling because I've been thinking about it all March, and I've been waiting. I knew it was coming, but I've been waiting. I wanted to make sure that bill that is coming through this week actually came through. Okay, here it is. I paid off my highest interest, credit card consolidated loan 16 months early, and I am so excited. I'm yelling. Woohoo! My goal for New Year's was to have it paid off by the end of the year. So, 1 year, 6 months early. But no, it is down to 0. And I'm super excited. Thanks, guys. Love the show.
Yeah.
Celebrating with you.
Oh my gosh.
I'm doing my lightning round sounds early. I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh. And doing it in sunny St. Petersburg. And man, now you're going to be able to invest in real estate in St. Petersburg and become a millionaire because that's what everyone's doing. So congratulations.
And how fitting. Paying down that high interest loan early. That's what we're talking about. Getting rid of it. 16 months early. Accomplishing your goals even earlier than you had set for yourself. So many great things here. Congrats.
We're so proud of you. All right. And let's see our second Bill of the Week.
Hi, ladies. My name is Emily. I'm from Toledo, Ohio, and I'm so excited to share this with you. My bill of the week is my rent bill, which is now $435 a month. I'm a new listener, and your podcast helped me work up the courage to call my landlord and negotiate a $25 monthly discount in exchange for signing another year-long lease. You guys were my courage buddies, and because of you, I'm going to save $300 this year. So thank you.
Oh, Emily from Toledo.
Oh my gosh, $300. We're so happy to be in your ear by your side, giving you courage. But all that courage comes from you, girl. We're just telling you you have it.
Courage buddies. I love that term. And also, I was expecting you to say for negotiating and you're going to do an exchange of some lawn maintenance or something, but it was just for signing another year. It doesn't take any time or energy out of you over this next year. You just get a savings. Well done. And I hope that this inspires other people to do likewise and experience a discount for themselves. So, Emily, glad to be your courage buddy. And you are, I know, being a courage buddy to somebody else right now.
Yeah. I mean, and you can negotiate with landlords. Landlords want really good tenants that keep up their property well. And if that's you and you want to give them more money for another year and keep them from having to look for a new tenant, take a chance on them, run background checks and all that stuff, then they can help you out with rent a little bit, or at least not increase it if they're trying to increase it. So definitely always ask. The worst they can do is say no, but always ask and give a reason behind why you deserve what you're asking for.
If you want to submit your bill of the week, visit frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill. Leave us a bill, whether it's about paying off debt, lowering bills, you know it, a person named Bill. We're all ears.
We get our weekly groceries delivered through Instacart because once football season starts, game time is family time. I can get everything my family needs for the week, from reliable staples to specialty ingredients, all delivered right to my door in as fast as 1 hour. So I can stay on my game without missing a minute of the game. Visit instacart.com or download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum order $10. Additional terms apply. Instacart. Add life to cart.
Now I'd like to introduce you to Meaningful Beauty, the famed skincare brand created by iconic supermodel Cindy Crawford. It's her secret to absolutely gorgeous skin. Meaningful Beauty makes powerful and effective skincare simple, and it's loved by millions of women. It's formulated for all ages and all skin tones and types, and it's designed to work as a complete skincare system, leaving your skin feeling soft, smooth, and nourished. I recommend starting with Cindy's full regimen, which contains all 5 of her best-selling products, including the amazing youth-activating Melon Serum. This next-generation serum has the power of melon leaf stem cell technology. It's melon leaf stem cells encapsulated for freshness and released onto the skin to support a visible reduction in the appearance of wrinkles. With thousands of glowing 5-star reviews, why not give it a try? Subscribe today and you can get the amazing Meaningful Beauty system for just $49.95. That includes our introductory 5-piece system, free gifts, free shipping, and a 60-day money-back guarantee. All of that available at meaningfulbeauty.com.
And now it's time for the lightning round.
Yes. So in today's lightning round, we are going to share what we would change about our debt payoff.
You go first, Jen. I'm curious what you have to say.
Oh my gosh.
I know I pounced on that.
Okay. I would have... So part of me thinks that I would have started maybe investing a little bit earlier. We ended our debt payoff in August, which gave us enough time to max out a Roth IRA for that year because you could go into the next year. You have until tax day to contribute to your Roth. So we were able to max out. But I think I may have done a little bit more in the year previous. But not doing that allowed us to be in a place where we could buy a home at the beginning of 2017 while we were paying off debt. So I'm really glad we did that. Yeah, maybe I would have just if I had known about Roth IRAs, I would have opened one just a year earlier. Honestly, our debt payoff took 2 years, which is very reasonable. So I can't even really say I regret not investing, but had I known about it, I definitely would have done a little, even if it was just, $250 a month. So yeah, I would have done that.
Yeah, that's good.
It doesn't make a big difference in the grand scheme of things, though, honestly.
Yeah, I think similarly, I in no way want to come across as though, everything happened perfectly for me. I generally don't have many regrets. I will say that. And maybe part of that is just like my ideology. You either learn from things or you can build upon any of it. Ultimately, I'm glad that I was focused on paying off debt immediately after graduation, if not sooner. Like it was on my radar. So ultimately, I don't have massive regrets around it or things that I would change. I think maybe having made more money would have helped in the stress levels that existed of, okay, I really don't like this burden. I want it gone, but I also barely make enough to kind of cover costs. Eric and I had a very, very low income in our first years of marriage. And I've talked openly and candidly about that. But at the same time, I mean, that is part of our journey. And it's part of what allows us to have a focus on generosity because we know what it feels like. And I don't know. Yeah. So it's so tough because if you take away one thing, what does that mean for what your journey would have been? But I think as I look back, if I would have had more permission in myself to look for higher paying jobs, I think that would have helped me. I think I stayed a little stuck for a little bit too long thinking that's where I had to be, and it just wasn't.
So I'm glad you said that because that is very much a mindset thing. And I think I would like to amend mine by saying, I wish I had believed I could pay off debt, even though I was making a really small income when I was single. I didn't believe that I could pay off the debt. And so I wish I would have just believed more and tried to start sooner and even not maybe accomplished a lot, but just tried to start sooner because I did have money. But again, very negligible amount of time, just a few years that I waited after graduating before I met Travis. So, but yeah, it's I think the mindset I was in kept me stuck more than anything. So probably that was what I would.
But you learn that in time,
Yeah,
there's part of me
that's the
that
thing.
only realized that, in hindsight, looking back, that I felt stuck. I did get out of it. I'm not in that same place. But if there's so I think part of why we're saying this is to speak to those who might find themselves in that place of, if you are a young working professional and you feel stuck, begin to look for options. You don't have to be stuck. It doesn't mean that you can immediately get out of that situation, but begin to believe what we're saying and in your own abilities and capacities to look for something different. If it's not feeling right, if you're not at peace about it, you don't have to stay in that place.
Yeah. The sooner you start replacing the term I can't with how can I, the faster and further you will get.
Yeah.
The sooner you will get to wherever you want to go.
I can vividly remember, and so I felt stuck in this one position. I was working at a residential facility for youth, and so much of what kept me there was my desire to help these kids who were about to age out of the foster care system. So certainly there's a lot of empathy present there, and that's a lot of what kept me there. But I can still remember this moment in my car where I was at the end of my rope. I was in the parking lot about to leave work for the day, just at the end of myself, and just like crying out in the car, like, when can this end, kind of a thing. Like, it just all felt like too much, emotionally too much, financially not enough. Like, it all just like felt like such a burden. And it just, this flip switch, like, who's holding you back from doing something different? Who said you have to be here? You have to stay here. And all of a sudden I just felt like this weight lifted, like, oh, I have permission. I don't have to stay here. This does not have to be the rest of my life. I still care immensely for those students who were there. I mean, they're probably all like in their late 20s at this point. And my sights are still on foster care and wanting to help those in the system, particularly older children, so it can inform. But anyhow, yeah, I can still remember that moment of like, oh, there's permission. I don't have to stay here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, that was an insightful lightning round that I hope inspired you to kind of challenge some of the things and some of the ways that you think about paying off debt and making financial decisions. So thank you so much for listening. We want to thank you for your kind reviews. And if you disagreed with anything in this episode, we hope that you won't leave us a 1-star review. But if something impacted you positively, we hope you will leave a positive review, like TX Kane, who left a 5-star review called Making Money Fun. Thank you for making frugal living fun. Listening is like hanging out with my 2 best buds, who I might actually listen to. Very helpful.
Short and sweet. I love it. Thanks, TX Kane. We also want to thank our friends who share these episodes on social media. So when you share the latest episode and tag us on Facebook or Instagram, we add you to our monthly drawing. So for every 5 tags and reviews we get each month, we give away a copy of the Frugal Friends workbook.
So keep leaving us reviews on iTunes or Stitcher and sending the screenshot to frugalfriendspodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to tag us on social. Remember, it is still July, so you can opt to get a all-access pass from the Future Frugal Summit. It is no longer for sale, so if you missed your chance, this is the way to get one.
Thanks so much, everyone. See you next week.
Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani. when you were talking about mistakes and you're like, you either learn from things that happen and I wanted so badly to say, or you die. They're never mistakes. They're just opportunities for learning, or you die.
Yeah, or you couldn't ever learn it because you're not here anymore.
You dead. So learn or die. Put that on a bumper sticker.
That's the morbid way of looking at it.
Which is why I didn't say it in the episode.
This still is the episode, Jen. You are still saying it.
We're still recording. Okay.
Land.com can help you find that little patch of ground to call your own and do all the hunting, fishing, and hanging out with the family you want. Just know that getting your own piece of land is something that can generate memories for generations, but also has the ability to generate income in both the near and long term. Like if you just want to start a rental business / family compound. Go to Land.com and check out the hundreds of thousands of rural listings from all across America. Enough dreaming about it. Land.com is a place to find and invest in your open space.
With the best all-inclusive vacation deals to Mexico and the Caribbean, booking your getaway with Cheap Caribbean Vacations means you have more freedom to do your deal. Whether you want to enjoy snorkeling, endless margaritas, and more, or simply soak up the sun and sand in a tropical paradise, Cheap Caribbean Vacations has your deal for that. Plan and book the exact getaway you want at exactly the right price for you by using our exclusive budget Beach Finder, or find a featured all-inclusive package to Iberostar Hotels and Resorts and do your deal at cheapcaribbean.com.